As we've mentioned before, a lot of owners are hesitant to expand right now because of the hiring shortage. After all, if they can't hire enough for their current centre, they will likely have trouble hiring for their new centre. While this rationalisation is perfectly understandable, we don't recommend sitting on a lot of cash right now, and that's because of inflation. As of 2022, about one-third of the cash currently circulating in the US today was printed in the last 2 years. Earlier, we talked about the rising costs of everything we spend money on, and this is due to inflation. The price of a two-bedroom apartment or a used car has gone up over the years. It isn't necessarily that these items are worth more than they were previously, but instead, the value of the dollar is worth less. The US is more insulated against hyperinflation than other countries due to the fact that the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. But as of 2022, we are seeing the highest inflation rate of the US dollar in 40 years. We are certainly not doomsayers and don't currently believe our economy is heading towards a catastrophic collapse, but we do think it's wise to invest excess cash in something that isn't as likely to lose value. Note, we're talking about excess cash. Having enough money in the business bank account to cover 3 months of normal business expenses, including payroll and rent, is crucial. What we're talking about is the amount over your necessary bank balance. For example, we have a client in Texas who has 2 centres and wants to buy a third, but not right now because she can't staff the centres she already has. She's also receiving somewhere around $400,000 in grant money from the state of Texas. We have talked extensively about her options: hold the excess funds in the bank account, pay off her current mortgage and other debts on her 2 centres, or buy land in the area where she wants to buy her next centre. Of all her choices, we believe buying land is the best option. Here's why. In purchasing land, she's sinking her excess funds into something that's not likely to lose value and will increase her income when she's ready to build her third centre. The second best option is to pay off the mortgage or other debt. Right now, inflation is at about 8%. Her current mortgage rate is 5.5%. This information, looked at on its own and not considering any other options, would mean that she shouldn't pay off her mortgage. In a high inflationary environment, the value of the mortgage property goes up and the amount of debt, that is, her mortgage, stays flat, but the real value of that debt goes down. As a result, the equity in her property increases. Owning a real property, such as a building, coupled with a low interest rate mortgage, tends to be a good way to hedge against inflation. The amount of the mortgaged debt stays the same while the cost of almost everything else in the economy goes up. If inflation rates exceed borrowing rates, that is, if inflation is at 8% and your interest rate is at a 5.5%, the lender is effectively paying you 2.5% to borrow money. So, from an economic standpoint, it's not a great idea to pay down debt if the interest rate is less than the inflation rate. But from an expansion standpoint, you're much more attractive to a lender if you have little to no debt. When a lender evaluates you for a loan, they'll be looking at how much of your cash flow goes to servicing debt. The more monthly debt payments you have in comparison to your operating profit, the less likely you are to be approved for a loan. The least prudent choice is to let cash sit in the bank, earning little income and losing value. If you determine, though, that you want to keep a bigger stockpile of cash, at least ensure that it is in a high-yield savings or money market account. You can also talk to your financial advisor about appropriate ways to invest the funds into a brokerage account.